Welcome, and I'm going to be talking about something we're all interested in, our brains, and I'd like to talk about the relationship between brain science and lean. We've been hearing that the only constant is change for decades. What that means is that we're really coping with uncertainty and adapting to change. With real lean, which is thinking lean, getting people to think critically and work toward a clear goal, we're asking our brain to do something that it's not good at and doesn't really like to do. For all intents and purposes, our brain has barely evolved in the last 10,000 years. Here's a cartoonish picture of the brain, and starting with the basal ganglia, that's where habitual routine behavior lives. And there's a part of the brain called the reptile brain structure, which is the most primitive, which regulates breathing and functions that we don't have to think about. There's also the mammal part of the brain that is instinctive and affects things like our flight or fight response when we feel threatened. But what basically our older brains like is routine, comfort, and predictability. So habit is good, and lack of change makes us feel comfortable. Now, there's another part of the brain called various things working memory, but it's the cerebral cortex, and it's the part of our brain that is on the outside, and this is the human part that evolved after we came out of the trees, after we started walking the savannah, and we freed up some energy by standing upright for our outer brain to develop. And that's the part which we think of as who we are. That's the part that reasons and thinks and stores new information and evaluates. And it turns out that that part of the brain takes a lot of energy. In general, your brain could take up to 20% of your energy. And if you can imagine back in the primitive times when getting food was a challenge, or people who survived were people who were very frugal about using energy. So even educated, intelligent people can assume they understand the problem and jump to solutions. Let's now relate this to some ideas that Mike rather introduced in the book Terracotta. And he asked the question, how do we tend to improve? Even when we have these lean geniuses who have black belts and they're coming in and telling us what to do, and they have something like a waste walk. Let's walk the process. Let's go to the Gemba. Let's see the wastes firsthand. Let's write them down, and then we can begin to attack the wastes. Or let's do a value stream map and see the wastes as we map the process and how ridiculously long it takes to make this product and how 90% or more is waste, and then everybody feels bad. And now let's list the wastes that we see and, again, start to attack these. What we end up doing is a kind of random walk. We're randomly trying to eliminate waste. Now, our hidden brain, our primitive brain, likes this because this is what we know how to do. This is what we do all the time. We fight fires. Now we have a little bit more systematic approach, but we see a waste, we put in a countermeasure, we see it's an improvement, it's very fast, and there's no failures if we do what we know how to do, and therefore we feel as though we're learning and progressing. A lot of the knowledge we've accumulated about lean is knowledge about how to shape the system so that it performs better. So, for example, we learn with smaller batches we can get more rapid feedback, then we can find problems more quickly and we can address those problems. So we might decide as a target condition that we would like to get feedback to the person doing the work within 20 minutes of doing the work if there's a defect, or within 10 minutes, or instantaneous feedback. When we have the target condition, we need to start to activate our prefrontal cortex and actually think our way step by step toward that. Now, if we don't know, if we're in this area of uncertainty, that is, we don't know how to solve the quality problems, it's not something we have a routine for, and we don't know how to get rapid feedback and what kinds of feedback will be effective, then we have to experiment. So what this is showing is experimenting step by step through the zone of uncertainty. So you have to push people a bit into action outside their comfort zone, and in a situation where they can succeed, or if they fail, they're willing to get up and try again. But there is a kind of art as a coach to getting people to move into that zone of uncertainty, but what you want to do is get them doing stuff. So what we're trying to do is to coach people from the current condition to the target condition. The point of this is to not overcome resistance to change, but to naturally defeat resistance to change by creating a force that is more powerful than the resistance. And the force comes from intentionally, iteratively learning and building up confidence in the improvement routine itself, and feeling good enough about what happens when you succeed that you venture into the zone of uncertainty despite the resistance.